A very common concern that I see is that clients feel they may go into a long-term care facility, a nursing home, and all of their assets will be spent down, and that there won't be anything left at the time of their death. So how does this actually work? Let's look at an example. So this is a hypothetical. This assumes that either it's a single person or it was a married couple and the first spouse is deceased, and we're only looking at the surviving spouse and how this would work. If an individual decides they can no longer live on their own, or if their family helps them decide and decides they have to go in to a facility because it's just not safe for them to be alone at home anymore. If they go into a long-term care facility and they want a private room with skilled nursing, it could easily be in 2023, $10,000 a month. And if you're watching this in future years, assume additional inflation on top of that. Well, how does that get paid? If a person has Social Security, that number, the Social Security amount, would be used to reduce whatever is owed because it comes in every month reliably. If there is a pension, if there are annuities that pay every single month, and those all add up to $10,000 or more, well, really, this isn't a problem. If you have long-term care insurance on top of that, which would pay either all or a critical mass, it of course would then reduce liability. But the fact is that most people don't have all of those things. Sometimes they have a pension and Social Security. Sometimes they have Social Security and long-term care insurance, but it's pretty rare. Most people just have Social Security, and that's quite normal. And what would happen in the normal case is that your other assets would have to produce income to satisfy the shortfall. So if your Social Security is $2,000 a month, that would leave at least an $8,000 shortfall for long-term care costs. Well, that means your other assets would have to produce at least $8,000 in income each month. If you don't have a portfolio or investments that would do that, well, each month, that means you're going to have to sell principal. So if in month one, there is $5,000 of income produced, and there's an additional $3,000 of principal, meaning investments that have to be sold, that means the following month, there's not going to be $5,000 worth of income. It's going to be less because you have less principal, which means you're going to have to sell more principal. And it can spiral down to the point where all that you have left is $2,000. At that point, Medicaid will kick in and start paying the bill. Now, at this stage, it's kind of a fork in the road when I'm talking to clients. Some clients feel, well, that doesn't seem like a bad scenario. I mean, you just showed that the assets I've worked hard to earn be used for my care. And if they run out, the government pays the shortfall. Sounds fine to me. And for those clients, there's no planning required in this area. There's another side of that, though. Some clients say, well, I've worked hard to earn all of those assets. When I die, I don't want there to be absolutely nothing or basically nothing to pass on as a legacy. And for those clients, this is not an acceptable risk. And they would prefer to put measures in place to avoid this outcome. And let's look at a device that can do that. What we could do ahead of time, not right before you go into the nursing home, and we'll talk more about that later, but what we would do is ahead of time, we would create a Medicaid Asset Protection Trust. It's a trust that is irrevocable. Now, what that means is that we would only strategically move certain assets into this trust, not all, but certain assets. And the two that I have as an example here, real estate and whole life insurance, It's not an exhaustive list. It could be stock, it could be personal property, it could be other things. Those are probably the two most common because they have the least impact on a person's life. But once those assets go into the irrevocable trust, the trust is locked, meaning those assets cannot come out and be used for the creator's care or consumption. They can still live in the real estate. They could have the exclusive right to occupy that real estate. And if that real estate became, well, no longer suitable, and they wanted another piece of real estate to live in, the trustee could sell the real estate and buy a different piece of real estate. That's permitted. The benefit is that you continue to have the right to occupy any property within that trust. And there's some flexibility. Now, the trustee would not be you, meaning the creator. It would be probably another family member. The great part about it is even though the trustee is not the creator can retain the right to fire the trustee and appoint somebody different. So while there's not control, because there can't be, the creator does retain the right to change the trustee, who is the decision maker. But after creating this trust, let's run the scenario we saw on the last slide. Person goes into a long-term care facility. It's expensive by almost any standard. Burn through assets, down to your last $2,000, and then Medicaid kicks in. Well, it's quite a different outcome than we saw on the last slide, because upon their death, everything in the irrevocable Medicaid Asset Protection Trust will pass on to their beneficiaries. So the benefit being that there is a certain legacy that will pass on. All the while, they were able to live in the property for the remainder of their life, and the property could be changed into different properties if the trustee wanted to do so. There's an important consideration here, which a lot of people have heard about, and that is you can't wait until you are on the doorstep of the nursing home to do this type of planning, or at least it's not advisable. The reason being, there's a 5-year look back on gifts, meaning if you make a gift to someone in 2023, meaning a transfer into an irrevocable trust, that means you have to not run out of money or need skilled nursing care for at least 5 years. So from 2023 to 2028, so you can see it does require some very proactive planning. So this is an area where we work with a lot of clients and evaluate. It's helpful to take a long-term view on this and to address goals that you have for the next 5 or 10 or 15 years when deciding how to assess and plan out for these strategies.